I found out my girlfriend has been paying her ex to sabotage my relationships. The text message that changed everything wasn't meant for me, but it exposed a betrayal so twisted it would make anyone question the very foundation of their relationship. My name is Jake, and at 28 years old, I thought I had it all figured out. I had a stable job as a software developer, a decent apartment in the suburbs of Chicago, and what I believed was the perfect relationship with Nina, my girlfriend of 2 years. Nina was beautiful, intelligent, and seemed to be everything I had ever wanted in a partner. We had met through mutual friends at a party, and from the moment we locked eyes, I felt an instant connection that I had never experienced before. But the text message that changed everything wasn't meant for me, and it exposed a betrayal so twisted it would make anyone question the very foundation of their relationship. Our relationship progressed quickly, moving from casual dating to something more serious within just a few months. Nina moved into my apartment after 6 months, and we began building a life together. We shared everything: our hopes, dreams, fears, and even our finances. We had joint accounts, split bills evenly, and were saving for a future that included marriage and children. On the surface, everything seemed perfect, but looking back now, I realized there were subtle signs that something wasn't right. The first red flag appeared about a year into our relationship. I had been offered a promotion at work that would require me to relocate to another city for 6 months of training. I was excited about the opportunity and couldn't wait to share the news with Nina. Instead of being happy for me, she seemed unusually distressed, claiming that long distance would destroy our relationship. She cried, pleaded, and even suggested I turn down the promotion. I was confused by her reaction, but chalked it up to her being afraid of losing me. In the end, I declined the promotion to ease her worries. Then there was the incident with my childhood friend, Lisa, who had moved back to Chicago after living abroad for several years. Lisa and I had always been close, and I was excited to catch up with her over dinner. Nina seemed fine with the idea initially, but on the day of the dinner, she suddenly became ill. She insisted I cancel my plans to take care of her, and feeling guilty, I did. Lisa was understanding, but seemed disappointed. A week later, when I tried to reschedule, Nina found another reason for me to cancel. Eventually, Lisa stopped trying to reconnect, and I lost touch with yet another important person from my past. Another strange occurrence involved my job. I had been working on a major project with a colleague, Rachel, who happened to be an attractive woman in her early 30s. Nina had never met Rachel, but somehow she became convinced that Rachel was interested in me romantically. She would question me endlessly about my workdays, asking for details about my interactions with Rachel. One day, I came home to find that Nina had accidentally spilled coffee on my work laptop, destroying weeks of progress on the project. I had to confess to my boss what happened, and though he was understanding, I was removed from the project and reassigned. These incidents, and many others like them, should have made me suspicious, but I was blinded by love. I trusted Nina completely and never questioned her motives. That is, until the day everything changed. It was a Tuesday evening, and Nina had left her phone on the coffee table while she took a shower. My own phone was in the bedroom charging, so when I heard a notification sound, I instinctively reached for hers. The screen lit up with a message preview that made my blood run cold. It was from a contact named simply M, and it read, "Payment received, phase 2 complete, she's convinced he's cheating now, ready for next instructions when you are." I stared at the message, my mind racing. Who was M? What payment was Nina receiving? And who was convinced I was cheating? Before I could process these questions, another message came through. "Sorry, meant to send that to my other client. Ignore." But it was too late. I had seen it, and I couldn't unsee it. My hands trembled as I placed Nina's phone back on the table, exactly as I had found it. The sound of the shower turning off sent a wave of panic through me. I had to act normal, pretend I hadn't seen anything, but my mind was already working, connecting dots I hadn't even realized existed before. The next few days were a blur of anxiety and suspicion. Every time Nina looked at her phone, I wondered who she was talking to. Every time she left the room, I fought the urge to check it again. But I didn't need to. The message I had seen had opened my eyes, and suddenly all the little oddities of our relationship began to make sense in the most twisted way imaginable. I started paying closer attention to Nina's behavior, her routines, and her conversations. I noticed how she would sometimes smile at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking, a secretive, almost triumphant smile that I had never noticed before. I realized how often she would suggest I cancel plans with friends or family, always with a plausible excuse that made me feel guilty for even considering going. The weekend after I discovered the message, Nina announced she was going to visit her sister in another city. She had mentioned this trip before, but now it seemed suspiciously convenient. As soon as she left, I began my investigation. I started with her laptop, which she had left behind. We had always been open with our devices, sharing passwords and never hiding anything, so I knew her login credentials. My hands shook as I typed in her password, feeling a mix of guilt and determination. I wasn't proud of snooping, but I needed to know the truth. I started with her emails, searching for any correspondence with someone whose name started with M. Nothing obvious stood out, so I broadened my search to words like payment, sabotage, and relationship. That's when I found it, a folder labeled Work Projects that contained nothing but subfolders with dates and cryptic names. Inside one of these folders, I found a series of emails between Nina and someone named Marcus. The emails were detailed, discussing various projects and strategies to achieve specific outcomes. As I read, my heart sank deeper with each word. These weren't work projects, they were plans to sabotage my relationships and career opportunities. The first email I could find was from over a year ago, right around the time I had been offered the promotion. Marcus had outlined a strategy to make Nina appear insecure and needy, convincing me to turn down the job. The emails even included specific phrases Nina should use and scenarios to create. There was a detailed breakdown of my personality traits, weaknesses, and fears, information that could only have come from Nina herself. As I scrolled through more emails, I found evidence of other schemes. There was a plan to create a rift between me and Lisa, complete with fake messages Nina had crafted to make it seem like Lisa was flirting with me. There were emails discussing how to make my colleague Rachel seem interested in me professionally and personally, culminating in the accident with my laptop. What struck me most was the cold, calculated nature of these plans. There was nothing emotional about them. They were strategic, almost businesslike in their execution. And at the end of each successful project, there was a note about payment being transferred to Marcus's account. I felt sick as I realized what was happening. Nina wasn't just sabotaging my relationships and career opportunities, she was paying someone to do it. But why? What could she possibly gain from making me miserable? The answer came in the form of a hidden folder within the hidden folder. It was labeled Backup and contained just one file, a series of encrypted messages between Nina and Marcus. It took me a while to figure out the password, but eventually I got it right, using the name of Nina's childhood dog. The messages revealed everything. Marcus was Nina's ex-boyfriend, someone she had dated before me. They had broken up when Marcus cheated on Nina, or so she had told me. But according to these messages, their breakup had been mutual, and they had remained in contact. The messages showed that Nina was still in love with Marcus and wanted him back. The problem was, Marcus was now in a relationship with someone else and had made it clear he wouldn't leave his current partner unless Nina was single. So Nina had hatched a plan. She would date someone new, me, make it appear as though I was the one pushing for a serious relationship, and then systematically sabotage our relationship to the point where I would break up with her. She would then be free to reunite with Marcus, who she believed was waiting in the wings. The most twisted part of all this was that Marcus wasn't just her ex-boyfriend. He was also the one she was paying to help execute this plan. He was taking her money to help her destroy a relationship with me, all so she could eventually get back together with him. As I sat there staring at the evidence of Nina's betrayal, I felt a range of emotions: anger, hurt, confusion, and disbelief. How could someone be so manipulative? How could I have been so blind? And most importantly, what was I going to do now? The next few weeks were a living hell. I had to pretend everything was normal, all while carrying the weight of Nina's betrayal. Every smile, every touch, every "I love you" felt like a lie, and I struggled to maintain my composure around her. I needed more evidence, a clearer picture of the extent of her deception before I could confront her. I decided to set up a few tests to confirm my suspicions. The first opportunity came when my college roommate, Kevin, announced he was getting married and wanted me to be his best man. The wedding was in another state, and I would need to be away for a long weekend. I watched Nina's reaction carefully when I told her the news. At first, she seemed supportive, but over the next few days, she began planting seeds of doubt. She mentioned how convenient it was that the wedding was on the same weekend as a major project deadline at work. She accidentally showed me an article about how bachelor parties often lead to infidelity. She even suggested that I shouldn't go, claiming that my presence at work was more important. I played along, pretending to consider her advice, all while documenting everything. I took screenshots of her text messages to her friends, where she expressed concern about me going to the wedding. I recorded our conversations when she tried to convince me to stay home. I even installed a monitoring app on our home Wi-Fi to track her online activities. What I discovered was even more disturbing than I had imagined. Nina was in constant communication with Marcus, discussing every aspect of my life. They had a shared document where they tracked my moods, my interactions with others, and even my daily routines. They had contingency plans for every possible scenario, including what to do if I discovered their scheme. The depth of their manipulation was astounding. They had analyzed my psychological profile, identifying my insecurities and fears. They knew exactly how to push my buttons, how to make me doubt myself, and how to isolate me from my support system. They had even created fake social media profiles to interact with me online, planting seeds of doubt and jealousy. One particularly disturbing discovery was a series of fake dating profiles they had created using photos of attractive women. These profiles would occasionally like or comment on my social media posts, creating the illusion that other women were interested in me. Nina would then discover these interactions and use them to start arguments or express her insecurities. I also found evidence that they had been monitoring my phone and computer. There was software installed that tracked my location, my calls, and my messages. They knew who I was talking to, what I was saying, and where I was going at all times. There was no privacy, no aspect of my life that wasn't being scrutinized and manipulated. The more I uncovered, the more I realized that our entire relationship was a carefully constructed illusion. Nina had never loved me. She had been using me as a pawn in her twisted game to win back her ex. Every intimate moment, every shared dream, every expression of love had been part of her performance. As the wedding approached, I decided to play along with their plans. I told Nina that I had decided not to go to the wedding, citing work pressures and her concerns as reasons. She seemed relieved, even triumphant, which only confirmed my suspicions. But I had a plan of my own. I told Nina I had to go out of town for a last-minute work emergency, which would overlap with the wedding weekend. I packed my bags and left, making sure she knew exactly when I would be returning. Instead of going to the work conference, I went to the wedding, but I kept my attendance off social media and didn't post any photos. While I was at the wedding, I had a friend keep an eye on Nina. As expected, she invited Marcus over to our apartment. What my friend discovered was even more disturbing than I had imagined. Nina and Marcus spent the weekend together, laughing about how easily manipulated I was and discussing their future together now that their plan was working so well. My friend managed to record some of their conversations, and what I heard when I returned was devastating. They talked about me as if I was an object, a means to an end. They discussed how they would stage our breakup, making it look like I was the one at fault. They even planned how Nina would discover evidence of my infidelity to justify her leaving me. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. As I continued to listen to the recordings, I heard Marcus mention something about a phase 3 of their plan. Nina seemed hesitant,
asking if it was really necessary. Marcus insisted, saying it was the only way to ensure Nina would be free to be with him. Curious and concerned, I dug deeper into their communications, trying to find out what Phase 3 entailed. What I discovered made my blood run cold. They were planning to frame me for a crime, something serious enough to ensure I would be out of Nina's life for good. They had already started planting evidence, creating fake digital trails, and manipulating my accounts to make it look like I was involved in illegal activities. I realized then that this wasn't just about breaking up with me anymore. This was about destroying my life, my reputation, and my future. And I knew I couldn't wait any longer to confront Nina about what she had done. The confrontation happened on a Sunday evening, a day I had chosen carefully because we both had the next day off from work. I wanted to ensure we had time to discuss everything without the pressure of work obligations hanging over us. I had spent the entire weekend preparing, gathering all the evidence I had collected and organizing it in a way that would be impossible for Nina to deny or explain away. I started the conversation casually, asking Nina how her weekend had been while I was away at my work conference. She played her part perfectly, describing a quiet weekend spent catching up on chores and watching movies. She even managed to look disappointed when she mentioned how much she had missed me, a performance that would have been convincing if I hadn't known the truth. As she spoke, I watched her carefully, noting the subtle tells that I had become so attuned to. The slight twitch of her eye when she lied, the way she avoided direct eye contact when discussing certain topics, the nervous habit of playing with her hair when she was uncomfortable. These were the small details that had always been there, but that I had never truly noticed until now. When she finished her update, I took a deep breath and decided to dive right in. I told her that I hadn't actually gone to a work conference, but to my friend Kevin's wedding. I watched as her expression shifted from confusion to panic, her mind clearly racing to come up with an explanation. Before she could speak, I continued, telling her that I knew about her relationship with Marcus, about the money she had been paying him, and about their plan to sabotage our relationship. I presented her with the evidence I had collected, the emails, the messages, the recordings. With each piece of evidence, her face grew paler, her denials weaker. At first, she tried to lie her way out of it, claiming that Marcus was just a friend helping her with a surprise for me. But as I showed her more and more evidence, her story began to crumble. She became defensive, angry even, accusing me of invading her privacy and not trusting her. She tried to turn the tables, suggesting that my snooping was the real betrayal in our relationship. But I was prepared for this. I calmly explained that I had only started investigating after seeing the suspicious message from Marcus on her phone. I reminded her of all the times she had manipulated me, all the relationships and opportunities she had sabotaged. With each example, her defenses weakened further. Finally, when confronted with undeniable evidence of her plan to frame me for a crime, Nina broke down. She cried, she apologized, she begged for forgiveness. She claimed she had never intended for things to go so far, that Marcus had taken control of the situation and pushed her to do things she wasn't comfortable with. She promised she would end things with Marcus immediately and that we could work through this. But I wasn't interested in her excuses or her promises. I wanted to understand the why behind her actions. I asked her to tell me everything, from the beginning, holding nothing back. And so, she did. Nina explained that she and Marcus had been high school sweethearts, together for nearly 7 years before breaking up. Their relationship had been intense, all-consuming, and when it ended, Nina felt lost. She had tried dating other people, but no one compared to Marcus in her eyes. When we met, Nina admitted she wasn't looking for anything serious. She was just trying to move on with her life. But as our relationship developed, she found herself falling for me, which terrified her. She felt like she was betraying Marcus, even though they were no longer together. When Marcus reached out to her after learning she was in a new relationship, things became complicated. He was jealous, possessive, and manipulative, preying on Nina's lingering feelings for him. He suggested that if she could prove she was over me, they might be able to get back together.
What started as a simple test, trying to make me jealous or insecure, quickly escalated. Marcus saw how easily he could manipulate Nina, and he began pushing for more extreme measures. He convinced her that the only way to truly prove she was over me was to destroy our relationship completely. Nina claimed she never wanted to hurt me, that she got caught up in Marcus's manipulations and lost sight of what was right. She said she had tried to end their arrangement multiple times, but Marcus would threaten to expose everything to me, ruining any chance we had of working things out. As she spoke, I could see the genuine remorse in her eyes, the pain of someone who had made terrible choices and was now facing the consequences. But I also saw the manipulator she had become, the person who had systematically destroyed my confidence, my relationships, and my opportunities for personal and professional growth. When she finished her story, there was a long silence between us. The weight of her betrayal hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I had all the answers I had been seeking, but they brought me no comfort or closure. Instead, they left me with more questions about myself, about our relationship, and about what I was going to do next. The days following the confrontation were a blur of emotional turmoil. Nina had moved out of our apartment, taking her belongings and leaving behind a space that felt both empty and haunted. I found myself oscillating between anger, sadness, and confusion, struggling to process the magnitude of her betrayal. Every corner of our home held a memory, and each memory was now tainted with the knowledge that it had been part of her elaborate deception. I decided to take some time off work to sort through my feelings and decide what to do next. My boss, concerned about my sudden change in demeanor and request for time off, pressed for an explanation. I gave him a vague story about personal issues, but he seemed to sense there was more to it. He granted me the time off with the understanding that I would seek help through our company's employee assistance program. The first few days alone were the hardest. I kept replaying our entire relationship in my mind, analyzing every moment, every conversation, trying to identify the real from the fake. It was exhausting and mentally draining, but I felt compelled to do it, as if by understanding exactly how and when I had been deceived, I could somehow prevent it from happening again. During this time, I also had to deal with the practical aspects of our separation. We had joint accounts, shared bills, and even a lease on the apartment that had both our names on it. I contacted a lawyer who advised me on how to protect myself financially and legally. I changed all my passwords, updated my security settings, and even got a new phone number to ensure Nina and Marcus couldn't contact me or access my accounts. But cutting ties completely wasn't as easy as I hoped. Nina kept trying to contact me, leaving messages and sending emails begging for another chance to explain. She even showed up at my apartment a few times, crying and pleading with me to talk to her. I resisted at first, but eventually,
I agreed to meet her in a public place, with the condition that Marcus would not be involved in any way. Our meeting was tense and emotional. Nina looked different, tired, thinner, and somehow diminished without the confidence she had always exuded. She told me that she had ended things with Marcus for good, that she had realized how toxic their relationship had been and how much he had manipulated her. She claimed she was in therapy, working through her issues, and that she wanted to make things right with me. She also revealed something that shocked me. Marcus had been recording their conversations as well, and had been using them to blackmail her. He had threatened to release them to me, to her family, and even to post them online if she didn't continue with their plan. She showed me a restraining order she had filed against him, along with police reports documenting his harassment. As I listened to her, I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me felt sympathy for her, recognizing that she too had been a victim of Marcus's manipulation. But another part of me remained angry and hurt, unable to forget the deliberate choices she had made, the lies she had told, and the pain she had caused me. I asked her why she had never come to me for help, why she hadn't ended things with Marcus sooner. She admitted that she was ashamed, that she didn't know how to explain her actions without losing me completely. She also revealed that Marcus had convinced her that I would never forgive her, that I would see her as a monster and want nothing to do with her. He had played on her insecurities, just as he had played on mine. The most difficult part of our conversation was when she asked if there was any chance for us to reconcile. She promised she would spend the rest of her life making it up to me, that she would do whatever it took to earn back my trust. She spoke of the good times we had shared, the genuine feelings she had developed for me, and her regret for throwing it all away. I was honest with her, telling her that while I appreciated her honesty and her efforts to make things right, I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. The foundation of our relationship had been built on lies, and I wasn't sure if it was possible to rebuild something genuine on such unstable ground. We parted ways with an understanding that we would take some time apart to heal and reflect. Nina promised to respect my need for space and to continue her therapy. I agreed to keep an open mind, but made no promises about the future of our relationship. As I walked away from our meeting, I felt a sense of relief mixed with sadness. The immediate crisis was over, but the long road to healing had just begun. I knew that regardless of whether Nina and I could reconcile, I had a lot of work to do to rebuild my self-esteem, my trust in others, and my ability to form healthy relationships. The weeks turned into months, and slowly but surely, I began to rebuild my life. The first step was reconnecting with the people Nina had isolated me from. I reached out to Lisa, my childhood friend, and was relieved to find that she was willing to give our friendship another chance. We met for coffee, and I explained everything that had happened with Nina. She was shocked and supportive, and we gradually rebuilt our friendship, stronger this time with honesty and trust. I also contacted my boss and explained the situation in more detail. He was understanding and helped me transition back to work gradually. He even offered me the opportunity to lead a new project, a chance to prove myself and regain the confidence I had lost. I threw myself into my work, finding solace in the structure and purpose it provided. Therapy became a crucial part of my healing process. Through my sessions, I began to understand the dynamics of manipulation and control that had defined my relationship with Nina. I learned to recognize the red flags I had ignored, the ways in which my own insecurities had been exploited, and the importance of maintaining boundaries in relationships. One of the most challenging aspects of my recovery was dealing with the aftermath of Nina's attempts to frame me for a crime. Although I had discovered the plan before it could be fully executed, there were still traces of the evidence she and Marcus had planted. I worked with a lawyer and, in some cases, law enforcement to clear my name and ensure that there would be no long-term consequences from their actions. During this time, I also had to navigate the complex emotions that still lingered regarding Nina. Despite everything she had done, there were moments when I missed her, when I remembered the good times we had shared, and wondered if we could have built something real if not for Marcus's interference. These feelings were confusing and often left me feeling guilty, as if I was betraying myself by missing someone who had caused me so much pain. My therapist helped me understand that these feelings were normal, that it was possible to miss someone while also recognizing that the relationship was toxic and unhealthy. She encouraged me to acknowledge these feelings without judgment, to sit with them and understand what they were telling me about my own needs and desires. Nina, for her part, kept her promise to give me space. She sent occasional updates, letting me know that she was continuing therapy and working on herself. She also shared that Marcus had been charged with harassment and extortion, facing legal consequences for his actions. Part of me felt a sense of justice in this, but another part felt conflicted, knowing that Nina had been an active participant in their schemes. About 6 months after our confrontation, Nina reached out with a request to meet one more time. She said she had something important to tell me, and that after this, she would respect my decision if I never wanted to see her again. I was hesitant, but something in her message made me agree to meet. We met at a neutral location, a park, where we had spent time together in the early days of our relationship. Nina looked different, calmer, more grounded, with a new vulnerability that I hadn't seen before. She told me that she had been doing a lot of work on herself, trying to understand why she had been so susceptible to Marcus's manipulation and why she had made the choices she had. She also revealed that she had written a letter to Marcus, not to reconcile, but to express her feelings and find closure. In his response, he had admitted that he had never intended to get back together with her, that his help had always been about control and revenge for their breakup. He had enjoyed watching her manipulate me, had taken pleasure in the power he held over both of them. This revelation seemed to free Nina in some way, allowing her to see the full extent of Marcus's manipulation and her own complicity. She apologized again, not just for what she had done to me, but for the pain she had caused herself by allowing someone to have so much control over her life.
As we talked, I found myself feeling a sense of compassion for her, not just as someone who had hurt me, but as a fellow human being who had been caught in a web of manipulation and deceit. I didn't excuse her actions, but I could understand the vulnerability and insecurity that had made her susceptible to Marcus's influence. We parted ways with a sense of closure, both of us acknowledging that while our romantic relationship was over, we had both learned valuable lessons from our time together. Nina promised to continue her journey of self-discovery and growth, and I promised to continue working on my own healing and rebuilding my life. Walking away from that meeting, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The anger and hurt that had consumed me for so long began to recede, replaced by a sense of hope for the future. I knew that the road ahead would still have its challenges, but I also knew that I was stronger, wiser, and more resilient than I had been before. A year has passed since the day I discovered Nina's betrayal, and life has transformed in ways I never could have imagined. The journey from that dark moment to where I am today has been challenging, but it has also been incredibly rewarding, filled with growth, self-discovery, and unexpected opportunities. The apartment that once felt haunted by Nina's deception has become a sanctuary of my own making. I've redecorated, rearranged, and reclaimed every space as my own. The walls that once held memories of our relationship now display my own artwork, photographs of new adventures, and reminders of the strength I found within myself. My career has flourished in ways I didn't think possible after the setbacks I experienced. The project I was given as a chance to prove myself exceeded all expectations, leading to a promotion and increased responsibilities. I've also started mentoring younger developers, sharing not just technical knowledge, but also the importance of maintaining work-life balance and recognizing toxic dynamics in professional relationships. The friendships that Nina had tried to sabotage have not only been repaired, but have grown stronger. Lisa and I now make a point to check in regularly, supporting each other through life's challenges and celebrating our successes. I've also reconnected with other friends and family members, rebuilding the support system that had been so systematically dismantled. Perhaps the most significant change has been in my approach to relationships. After taking time to heal and focus on myself, I decided to try dating again, but with a completely different mindset. I've been more intentional about getting to know people, setting clear boundaries, and recognizing red flags early on. I've also been more honest about my past experiences, sharing what I've learned rather than hiding behind a facade of perfection. About 8 months ago, I met someone named Rachel, not the colleague from my past, but a new person entirely. Our connection developed slowly, built on a foundation of mutual respect, open communication, and shared values. When I finally shared the story of my relationship with Nina, her response was compassionate and understanding. She didn't judge me for my past or see me as a victim, but rather as someone who had grown through adversity. What I appreciate most about my relationship with Rachel is the balance and equality we share. There's no manipulation, no hidden agendas, no attempts to control or undermine each other. Instead, there's support, encouragement, and a genuine desire to see each other thrive as individuals and as a couple. I've also continued my therapy, though less frequently now, focusing on maintaining the healthy habits and coping mechanisms I've developed. My therapist has become a valuable sounding board as I navigate new challenges and opportunities, helping me stay grounded and true to myself. As for Nina, our paths have diverged, but not entirely. A few months ago, I received an email from her, updating me on her life. She had moved to a different city, started a new job, and was in a healthy relationship with someone who knew about her past and accepted her anyway. She expressed gratitude for the lessons learned from our relationship and wished me well. I responded in kind, acknowledging the growth we had both experienced and wishing her happiness in her new life. Sometimes, I still struggle with the aftermath of what happened. There are moments of doubt, of insecurity, of wondering if I'm seeing things clearly or if I'm missing hidden motives. But these moments have become less frequent and less intense, and I've learned to sit with them, examine them, and move forward with confidence in my judgment.
Looking back on that day when I discovered Nina's betrayal, I can now see it as a turning point rather than just a painful memory. The experience forced me to confront uncomfortable truths about myself, about relationships, and about the ways in which we can be vulnerable to manipulation. It also taught me valuable lessons about resilience, forgiveness, and the importance of staying true to oneself even in the face of deception. One of the most surprising outcomes of this experience has been the opportunity to help others who have gone through similar situations. Through a support group I joined, I've met people who have experienced various forms of manipulation and control in their relationships. Sharing my story and listening to theirs has been incredibly healing, creating a sense of community and understanding that has been invaluable. As I sit here today, writing this reflection, I'm struck by how much has changed in just 1 year. The person I am now is stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than the person who discovered that fateful text message. I've learned that while we can't always control what happens to us, we can control how we respond, how we grow, and how we move forward. The story of Nina and me is no longer just about betrayal and heartbreak. It's also about resilience, growth, and the transformative power of facing difficult truths. It's a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there's the potential for light, for healing, and for creating a future that's authentic and fulfilling. As I close this chapter of my life, I do so with gratitude for the lessons learned, excitement for what's to come, and a deep appreciation for the strength and resilience that exists within all of us, even when we can't see it at first.